So a warm welcome to you all. Thank you also for having me on today. It's a very exciting topic, creation. It can be a little bit complicated, but it's also fun as well. And I like to keep it pretty interactive as well. So, in the chat, you can write down whenever that you've got any issues or questions that are coming up. In the chat, maybe you could just write down how you're feeling today, how you're feeling about today's session, about how you're feeling in life in general. A little bit of a warm up for you all, and then we can get started. So,
Lisa Spring says, really looking forward to it.
okay, great. And Pragna Mataji is saying that she's very well and she's looking forward to the session. Super eager to learn, as it's a topic I've wanted to gain more grasp on for a while. Wonderful. Okay, well, we'll just get straight into it then. So today's topic is creation, and we are covering it from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So there it's described that every Purana, or especially all the 18 major Puranas, have 10 topics that are covered in the Purana. So it goes like this. This verse, chapter Canto 2, chapter 10, verse 1. It goes like this: Atra sargo visargascha sthanam poshanam uttaya manvantre ishanu katha nirodho muktirashrayaha. So it says that there's 10 main topics that are covered. One is primary creation. And secondary creation. I think many of us are very familiar with secondary creation as we're growing up, learning through school, and maybe, just family members as well. We're very familiar with the second part, but the first part is not so well known. And we hear about the Lord, how he maintains the universe, about his pastimes of him coming and going from the earth. We hear how he does destruction. We hear how he maintains everyone. We hear about all the planetary systems. So this is covered in many of the Puranas that are there, these main topics. But today we'll be talking about creation as it's written about in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you have been reading the other Puranas, you might find a slight variation that are there, but the main principles are the same. The details might change a little bit. Okay, so we'll just start off with some prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Mukham Karoti Vachalam Bangam Langayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam. Okay, wonderful. So when we see the world, there are many different ways of gaining knowledge. There is a Shabda Brahman, or the authoritative testimony that comes from scriptures. There's Anuman, so mental reasoning or inference. It might be something that you see around you or that you hear around you, and from that you can get a general idea of, what's happening, or what's the idea behind what's going on. And then there's also Pratyaksha, which is direct sense perception. For example, whoever's got your videos on, I can see you directly and I can say, oh, Martin is on the Zoom today. So it's what I can see directly with my sense perception. So now Vedically, for us, the Shabda, or the authoritative testimony, is that which is written in the scriptures. And being brought up in this country and many other countries, there's a lot of influence that is there where it feels like we sometimes need physical evidence to prove that something is true. Now, this is not the Sanatani way. According to Sanatan Dharma, our testimony, or the authority behind anything, is that which is written in the scriptures. So the faith in the scriptures, and also, understanding it doesn't mean we can't question it. We can question it and we can discuss it, but it's not necessarily required to have physical evidence as it might be in other practices that are there. So we hear the words of authority, and we don't necessarily need to ignore anything else that comes from our intelligence or our own senses, but we can kind of collate the two together and try and see, what can I see around me, what can I experience around me, and does it fit in with the Shabda Brahman, with the scripture. Now, when it comes to the topic of creation, it's very difficult because we were not there when creation happened. So therefore, we have to believe the words of the scripture according to the understanding that when we speak to our mother and we want to know who our father is, our mother is the one who can say, okay, your father is so and so, because she was there before we were born. So she's known as the ultimate authority, and we take that as authority to know, what was happening before we came around. So that's the same with the Vedas and the Holy Scriptures, is that she was there, that this evidence or this knowledge was there before we came into the world, and therefore we take her word for it. But it doesn't necessarily mean we don't doubt it or we don't discuss it or we don't question it. We also don't believe in having blind faith. So that's why it's important to have sessions like this where we can kind of discuss it and we can compare it to scientific discovery that's happened today with the equipment that they have. Okay, so with science, the way they gain knowledge is it's described to be an upward sense of knowledge. So, for example, you might have a hypothesis of, okay, I believe that, if I do this experiment, this will be the outcome. So you might have a hypothesis or a theory in the beginning, and then you'll do an experiment, and from that experiment, the outcomes of it, you will do a conclusion. So this is described to be an ascending way. So from downwards, from seeing from around here, receiving, going up to the level of knowledge. But the only difficult thing is that we will use our imperfect senses. So that's one of the primary things that are written in the Upanishads, that as humans, we have imperfect senses. Now, some of you may agree with that, some of you don't. I mean, I wear glasses at nighttime because when I'm driving, I can't see the road properly. So that tells me immediately that my eyesight is not perfect. In the same way, there's sound waves that come through the atmosphere all the time that we can't hear, but animals can hear. So that gives that impression that not necessarily our senses are at the prime of fully understanding something. So we use these imperfect senses to then gain imperfect knowledge when we're using what we can see around us. And a common example used in the Puranas is the snake and the rope. So, I mean, I know in England we don't have so many snakes, but if we go to foreign countries, when we walk into a room in the dark and we can see something lying on the floor, and immediately we may think, oh my God, it's a snake. And when we turn the light on, we'll see that it's actually a rope. So this sense of not being able to, from just what we're seeing with our senses, we may not be able to reach the correct conclusion. And a more useful example for England is that we learned this in science when we were at school, that when you look at a car in the lamp light at nighttime, it might look like a different color than what it was when we see it in the daylight. So that's just an example of how we can use how we use our senses that may sometimes come across imperfect to give us imperfect knowledge. So, because we have imperfect senses, we tend to become illusioned. So, we think things are what they are when they're not. And because of illusion, we make mistakes. And then, according to that, we cheat we cheat others and we get cheated, or people try to cheat us as well. So, that is the difficulty with the ascending way of knowledge, or the way modern day science may do things. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with science, not at all. We're just analyzing the way in which knowledge is taken. The Vedas is a descending process. So you've got divine authority, which is considered to be trustworthy. And from that, we gain the knowledge of things that were around and in existence before we came along. It's a manual written by the personality who has created the universe. So it's described to be apaurushaya, or not man-made. It's not apaurushaya means not man-made. It's made by something transcendental, by a higher power. Okay, so I hope we've got everyone's on board and everything's okay up till this point. Let's see something in the chat. Okay. All right. So today I'm going to speak to you. The way I'm going to cover this topic of creation is in a circular way. And this is a knowledge that is how we normally get it in schools. And ultimately, the Vedas also teach in this way. So we start in the center and we gain a little bit of knowledge on a particular topic. And then what will happen is over time, we'll come back to that topic, but we'll go a little bit more in detail. And then we'll come back round and it'll go into a bit more detail. Then eventually you get the fuller picture. An example can be given is that when we're in nursery, we're maybe taught to count from 0 to 10. And we think that's all in all. And then the following year, as we improve, we'll learn that, okay, there's more numbers than 0 to 10. It's also 0 to 100. So this is something to bear in mind when we're on a spiritual journey, because sometimes as we progress, as we read more scripture, we may be like, hang on, that's not right. That's not how I understood it. That's not what was written in this particular scripture. But if we understand that it's actually just expanding and providing more detail on the knowledge that we had before. So to try and be open to that and think, okay, the knowledge is just deepening. For example, same with nursery and for year one, we're taught that, you can't take away, like if I had 10 sweets, I can't distribute them to 20 people. So there's no such thing as below zero. That's what we're taught. But then when we develop that understanding, we understand, okay, yes, as we get older, you can get into minus numbers as well. Although we can't share 20 sweets amongst others unless we're chopping them in half. So that's the idea. That's the logic that's behind it. So we're going to be doing this in a circular way. And I had a few people that replied to the poll that I put on the WhatsApp group, but not everybody replied. So I'm going to start from scratch, assuming that nobody knows anything about creation, and then we'll build on that as we go on. And in the chat, you can say go a bit faster or go a bit slower, so in case I am going too quick. All right, so we'll start off at level 1 of creation. So here, how do we come across creation in the first place in the Bhagavatam? So in Canto 1, Chapter 1, we hear about, I mean, the chapter is entitled The Questions of the Sages. And amongst that chapter, there are 6 primary questions that are asked by the sages. So I'm going to ask for you, this is not a test, this is just, to kind of make it interactive and get you an opportunity to contribute. You can write in the chat questions that you're aware of that are asked in the first particular chapter. You can let me know what you remember. You may not well remember it. I mean, I've read Bhagavatam many times and I was like, questions? What questions? I didn't see any questions in the first chapter. So yeah, if you can think of any questions, and just write them in the chat of what you may have seen come up. Give a bit of time to type. Okay, well, we haven't had anything come through. Maybe a few more seconds. Okay, can't, apologies, Mataji, read Canto 1 in 2022, so can't remember. Not a problem. I remember just reading it yesterday once, and I was asked what are the questions asked in the first chapter, and I was like, no, I didn't see any questions. So it's a bit embedded in there. You have to really, we need the commentaries of the acharyas and study guides to help us pick this up. Okay, so there are 6 questions that come up in the first chapter. So we hear that the sages, they've gathered in this forest called Namasharanya, and this sage Sutta Goswami has entered, and the sages are very excited to hear from him because he's just come back from he's just come back from where Parikshit Maharaj has heard the Bhagavatam. He heard him for 7 days and 7 nights by the bank of the Ganga, and Sutta Goswami was there. So Parikshit Maharaj has passed away, and then he has come and he's traveled to the forest of Namasharanya. And there's many sages that are gathered, and they're doing this special yajna because they understand that Kali Yuga is about to come, this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, and there's going to be great difficulty during that time. So they are, out of their love and compassion, they're doing 1,000-year fire sacrifice in order to try and hold off the effects of Kali Yuga. So when Sutta Goswami arrives, they know that he's been somewhere special. They'd heard that he had gone, and they were like, "Oh, but wait!" They were very curious. What happened? What was the discussion points? What was discussed? How did Parikshit leave? Please tell us about everything. So they're very excited, and they ask him all these questions. And Shaunaka Rishi, who's one of the elders, he says, "Okay, he's been busy traveling. Let him rest. Let me collate all the questions together, and then we'll ask him in the morning." So then in the morning time, when they gather, they said there were many questions that the sages asked, but I can summarize them into these 6 questions. So the first question that we have that they ask is, what is the ultimate good of people in general? Okay, so that's the first question. So all the questions get asked here in the first chapter, but they're answered gradually in chapter 2, and even some of them are answered as the cantos go on. Then the second question they ask, please explain the essence of all the scriptures. There's so many different scriptures, not all of us will live that long to be able to cover all the content of the scriptures. That just tell us the essence, please. And then the third question is that why did the Lord descend into Devaki's family? Why does the Lord come in the world? He's there in the spiritual world. What's the need for him to come down into this material world? And then the fourth question is the one that we're interested in today because that's related to creation, is that they ask that please describe the Lord's adventures in how he does creation. Tell us about the avatars of how the Lord sends to do creation, maintenance, and destruction. So that's the fourth question. And then the fifth question is, please also tell us about the Lord's Leela avatars, where the Lord comes, he performs pastimes of various types to kind of attract the whole of society to come back to the spiritual world. And then finally, the sixth question is that within whom did the religious principles take shelter after Krishna departed the world? So it's described that when Krishna leaves at the end of Dwapara Yuga, he takes many things with him. And then, so where did religious principles take shelter after that? And so I won't tell you the answer to these. You can pick up the answers as you're going through your adventure of the bug with them yourself as you're going through the journey. Okay, so the fourth question we hear about, please tell us about the Lord's pastimes as when he comes to create. So this is known as the Purusha avatars. So that's the title that's given to any avatar that comes to the universe in order to create. So Purusha avatars. So the question is asked in over here, as you can see the reference, and then the answer starts from chapter 2 onwards, and then it continues in chapter 3 and so on and so forth throughout the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's described in very small detail. Then it's introduced, goes into more detail as we go along. So I'm going to be following that pattern in these 2 sessions. So we'll start off on the basics and then we'll build upon it as we go along. Okay, so the first thing that happens is that the Lord expands as Karnodakshai Vishnu. Okay, or Mahavishnu. There's 2 different names. And I'm going to refer to a few of the names so that, when you're hearing these in classes, many devotees may call him Mahavishnu, or someone else may say Karnodakshai Vishnu. And that way you'll just be familiar with which Vishnu they're talking about. So the Lord comes as 3 different Vishnus, and they all have a very different role. So it's described that the Lord Krishna expands as Lord Vishnu, as you can see at him here. He's a gigantic form. He's absolutely huge. And it's described that before he lies down in this ocean, where does this ocean come from? It's described that the Lord sweats. So from his perspiration, he creates this huge ocean. And our sweat might be a little bit on the smelly side, but the Lord is transcendental. So the sweat that comes from the perspiration that comes from the Lord's body is divine, is transcendental, is nectarian, and it has a great, wonderful scent. So he creates this huge ocean, and then he lies down within that ocean, and he goes into yoga nidra, so a mystical type of sleep. So not the kind of sleep that we have because we're tired. It's a mystical kind of sleep. And it's described that in his sleep, as he exhales, as he breathes out, all of these different bubbles come out of each and every single pore in his body. Okay, so remember, this is just the breathing out. When he's exhaling, all the universes come out. So these bubbles are universes. So you can see there's multiple universes, like many millions, an unlimited amount of universes come out of his body. Okay, so he creates these, and this ocean that he's in is called the causal ocean, or in Sanskrit, the Garana ocean. And it's good to remember these oceans because then you'll know which Vishnu they're talking about when you read on. Okay, so this is Karnodakshai Vishnu. He's the first Vishnu, and he creates multiple universes. And this is at the point where the material world begins. So this ocean itself is part of the material world. Well, actually, it's kind of in an in-between state, but for now we can just say this is where the creation process starts. So the spiritual world is there eternally existing, but the material world is created and destroyed, which we'll see as we go along. Right, so we can see, if we look carefully at these universes, what happens is this Lord Vishnu, this Karnodakshai Vishnu, he expands and he goes into every single different universe. And we can look at that Vishnu now. So this Vishnu is called Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Okay, and he's slightly different from the first one because there's a few other features that are there. He lies on a serpent. So if we look back at the first one, he's not lying on a serpent, he's just lying directly in the ocean. This one, he lies on a serpent, Anantashesh. And we have Lakshmi Devi, who comes also with him. Now, Lakshmi Devi, she doesn't need to do any service. She's, none other than the Lord's internal potency. However, that's what she likes to do. She likes to be by the lotus feet of the Lord and massaging his feet. He doesn't need a massage. It's described that the Lord's transcendental. He doesn't get tired, but that's her service. That's what she likes to do. And it's described here that while Lord Vishnu is lying here, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, a lotus stem sprouts out of his navel, and a long, long sprout, and then from that comes a lotus stem, and Lord Brahma appears onto that lotus stem. So Brahma is the first created being. He's described to be a jiva with great power. So he's not, we don't consider him to be godhood or God. He has got a lot of power. So we have a lot of love, respect for him. And he's also the head of our Sampradaya, ISKCON. So we're part of the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. So we have a lot of respect for Brahma, but it's described that he's a jiva. So he's the first living being that is created, and we know that Vishnu creates him independently. We don't need to bring a union of male and female together in order to bring Brahma. So Brahma will go into a little bit later as we learn more detail. So this is the second Vishnu. So his name is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and he lies in the Garbhodaka ocean. Okay, and this ocean is in one of the universes. So if we just go back a little bit, we just look at one universe here, and in that one universe, you have Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and he expands himself into every single different universe. Okay, so we'll move on to the third one. So this Vishnu also then expands again. He expands as Shirodakshaya Vishnu or Kirodakshaya Vishnu. Another name for him is Paramatma or Antaryami or Super Soul. There's loads of different names. So we can see him here lying on Ananta again, sitting up. And then we've got Lakshmi Devi next to him. And this ocean that he lies on or he sits on is called the Milk Ocean. Okay. And actually, whenever any avatars come, or whenever there's any difficulties here on earth, the demigods, they come and they approach this particular Vishnu that, we're having trouble here on earth, the demons are taking over, we need help. And then is that Lord Vishnu they approach, and then, Lord Vishnu will say, okay, well, don't worry, I'll come soon, or he'll give them some advice about what to do. So, and then this one Vishnu, which is Shirodakshaya Vishnu, he then expands and he goes inside every single atom and the heart of every single living entity. Okay, so these are the three Purusha avatars or the three Vishnus. Okay, so at this point, do we have any questions? Feel free to unmute and ask, or you can write it in the chat. And then we'll build upon this as we go along. So if there's any difficulty with this, it's important we just cover it now so that we can be a bit more clear as we move on. All good?
Mataji, if I can just ask, sorry, what was the ocean that you said Garbhodaksha Vishnu was on?
He's a Garbhodaka ocean. I'll go back to the
Garbhodak
slide so you
Ocean.
can see
Okay,
this.
that's fine. Thank you.
The spellings are a little bit difficult, obviously, if you're not familiar with Sanskrit. So it's just right here at the top, the Garbhodaka
Right.
ocean.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, all good. Wonderful. So we'll move on. And I would say the best way to learn this and memorize it is actually just to teach somebody else or discuss it with somebody else, which we'll get a chance to do a little bit at the end. We'll go into breakout rooms because otherwise it can be just overwhelming. The way I grasped it as well is also to share it with others and explain it to others. And then that's always the best way to learn is to teach somebody else. Okay, so we'll look at the same thing again, but we'll look at it in a little bit more detail. So we'll look at level 2. Okay, so there's this important verse that's there in the Bhagavatam. All the verses in Bhagavatam are important, but this one especially because it's one of the Chatushloki Bhagavatam. So we always hear about the Chatushloki Gita, so the four primary seed verses that are there in the Gita. This one is the first one of the four primary seed verses that are there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Question. What is the meaning of Garbo Dakshai? Very good question. So Garbo means womb, or Garba means womb. And Dakshai means like he is like Shai means to lay down, someone who's laying down. So this personality who's laying down within the womb of the ocean, womb of the universe. So that's what how I kind of recall what the meaning is from what I've read. So that's my understanding of it. Okay, so this Chatushloki Bhagavatam, the first one, is a crucial verse to know because I think even as devotees, sometimes we can get a little bit confused when we're hearing about the Lord's pastimes and we're hearing about sometimes the difficulty that the Lord may seem to go through as he's here on earth. So by understanding this verse, we can kind of make sense of, the purpose of the Lord's appearance and disappearance. So it goes like this. Aham evasam evagre nanyat sat sadasat param paschadaham yat etacha yo vashishye sosmi aham. So this is Krishna speaking to Brahma, and he's saying, Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who is existing before the creation when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there this material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. So when I read this verse, it gave me great joy because I remember being a kid and asking my mum, oh, who created the moon in the sky? And they'll say, God did. And then the question always comes out, well, who created God? You always hear about, okay, well, who created this? The tree. Okay, the tree came from a seed. And, you ask all these questions and eventually you're like, God created everything. And you're like, oh, well, what was there when God wasn't there? So this verse makes us understand that before creation, so this is before the material creation, there was nothing but himself. So this material creation was not here. There wasn't the material nature. And while the material universe is there, the Lord is there. And when everything is destroyed, the Lord is also there. So he resides in a different region. He resides in an eternal, transcendental region, which is neither created nor destroyed. Okay, so this material universe comes into creation and is destroyed. Okay, so I don't know if any of you have seen this diagram before. I've absolutely fell in love with it when I first came across it because reading the Bhagavatam can sometimes be very difficult when you're trying to visualize or understand concepts that are written down. And I'm not sure how you all learn, but I'm a visual person. So when I see things, it helps me understand things a lot better. So let's look at the spiritual and the material worlds. So this particular poster, I'm happy to send it out an electronic version, but you can even buy posters that you can put up on your wall. And I think after 25 years, I still look at this poster and there's always new things that I'd never noticed before. So we always have it up on our wall, and it makes really interesting conversations when people come over to our home. Like what is this? What is this? So it's available online if you do want a proper life-size version that you can put on your door. So here is a spiritual, above this red line, we've got the spiritual world. So we've got everything that exists eternally. It's not created, it's not destroyed, there's no kind of destruction or deterioration of it. And it's described as the same nature as our soul. So, like as spirit souls, we're Sat Chit Anand. We're full of truth, we're full of eternality, and we're full of knowledge. That's what we're made up of. That's ultimately what the soul is made up of. And Vaikunta, or the spiritual world, is made up of those same things. And that's where we belong. So according to our philosophy in the Gita, that's where we belong. That's where we've ultimately come from. However, wanting to step away from that, wanting to enjoy separately, this material world is created. So the material world is a place, it's created, it's there for a while, it kind of dwindles and it's destroyed. So when we are looking at creation, we're looking at how the Lord steps into the material world to then, create this all for us. So this is a region what we're talking about. When we're talking about creation, we're talking about this lower half. Because remember, the top is not created, it's existing always. which can be a little bit of a difficult concept to come around because we're used to, like, our minds are conditioned in a certain way that from the world around us, that there's a beginning, there's a duration, and there's an end. So kind of understanding that there's something that's there all the time can sometimes be a little bit difficult to comprehend. But as we progress in our spiritual life, the realization of that goes a bit deeper. Okay. So right, so let's go back here. So now this is Vaikuntha Loka, or like the spiritual world, or the kingdom of God, you may call it. It's not the heavenly planets. That's something different. We'll talk about that at a different time. This is the spiritual world. So it's described that when the Lord wants to create, so we'll zoom in a little bit into the spiritual world. So this is a Vaikuntha Loka. It's just a different angle of the same top half of that. The Lord, there is a dark cloud in the corner of the spiritual universe. So the spiritual universe is huge and it's unlimited, but there's a tiny speck that is there in one corner. And I've kind of zoomed in a little bit so we can see it. So, there's a dark cloud in one corner of the spiritual universe. So that is where Lord Krishna, he expands himself and he enters into that dark cloud. He sweats, he creates this ocean that we first spoke about, the Karuna ocean. So this is, which Vishnu is this? Oh, I've written it here already. So this is the Karuna Dakshay Vishnu, or the Mahavishnu. So he lies here in this ocean that he's just created. And you can see the universe is coming out of his pores when he breathes out. Okay, so let's go back to here. So we can see this dark cloud that is there. We have Lord Krishna who's entered as Garnodakshay Vishnu. All these universes are coming out of his pores, and it is in this tiny dot in the corner of the spiritual world where the material world exists. So that might be a bit overwhelming for us because, we look at the world and we see, oh, I'm in this country and this country seems reasonably big. And then we look at the world and then we look at the kind of universe and we look at the planetary system and we actually just realize how small we are compared to it. And then in the spiritual world, there is this tiny dark corner and there's unlimited amount of universes. So not just our universe, many universes. Okay, so this is the next stage. So if we zoom in a little bit again, so you can see the same thing. So this from this white light onwards above, that is the Brahma Jyoti. And then we've got this here. We've got this ocean that the Lord has perspired and created, and all the different universes come out from there. Okay. Right, so the same one as we've covered before in level 1. So the Lord enters each and every single universe, and then the Lord is there with Brahma and Lakshmi Devi, and he is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu in the Garbhodaka ocean. All right, so at this point, there's no planets, there's no planetary systems, there's no Earth, there's no demigods anywhere, there's no population of humans, no animals, plants, or trees. There's just Lord Vishnu, Lakshmi, and Brahma. And obviously, like to keep it simple, that's all we're including. But obviously, there's many eternally liberated personalities and servants of the Lord that are there in the spiritual world with him. But in terms of creation, there's just Lord Vishnu, Lakshmi, and Brahma at this stage. And the universe, which is like described to be like a golden egg, and we'll look more of that next week, is half filled with water. And modern day scientists call that the cosmic ocean, so that the universe is half filled with water. So all the planetary systems and stuff that we see, from NASA and things like that, that's not only contained within half the universe. And at this stage, the third Vishnu, Shirodakshai Vishnu, has not yet expanded out of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. That's the level that we're at the moment. We're still at the second level, the level of the second Vishnu. All right, so here we can understand that there's two different types of creation. Okay, so now all the primary stuff has been done by the two Vishnus. So primary creation, all of the matter and elements have been created. So we've got earth, water, fire, air, ether, false ego. We've got the intelligence. We've got the mind. All of these are like ingredients that are just in existence. So if we think about a car factory, before the elements get to the car factory, somewhere you may have a plant, a steel plant, somewhere else you might have a rubber factory, that is getting all the elements from the earth to create all of these different, metal or rubber, and then eventually it will be taken to the car factory where they will shape it into like a door or a wheel and things like that. So that's how we can understand primary creation. So it's called sarga. The Sanskrit word of it is sarga. The primary creation, or the matter is there, or the elements are there, but they're just not doing anything. They're just in isolation. They're not mixed. They're just yeah, they're just in a kind of dormant state. So this is where Brahma comes in. We've seen that Brahma's already got created from the second Vishnu, and then Lord Brahma does the we call him Lord because he's got a very high position, so we speak to him with respect. So he does the secondary creation, right? So now he will put all the ingredients together to create the planetary systems to populate the universe. Okay, so are there any questions at this stage before we move on? No, we're all good. Okay. All right. So there's primary creation sarga and then the secondary creation visarga. And this secondary creation is probably what we're more familiar with. And I think if you've grown up in a kind of Sanatani family, you would have heard about the trimurti. You got your Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the trimurti who look after the universe, which we'll look at in a moment. All right. So here in the picture earlier, I had shown we had seen Lord Vishnu here lying on Ananta, and we have Brahma, and we have Lakshmi Devi. So we're going to go a step a little bit back. So Brahma's been created, but what's described is very dark, and he actually can't see Lord Vishnu here. He can't see anything around him. It's actually really dark. So we are at this stage. So Brahma, he kind of wakes up and he looks around and he sees himself on this lotus petal, this beautiful lotus petal. And it's dark all around him, and he becomes a little bit afraid of the darkness. So it's described as he's looking around, as he's searching in all directions, that's when he develops all of his heads. He can't see anything, it's darkness, and he becomes a little bit like, okay, where am I? What am I doing? What's my purpose over here? So what he does is he starts to climb down this lotus stem. He's coming down, and he goes so far down that he reaches water, and he can see water, and then he decides, okay, I'm not going to go underwater. He has a quick peek. There's nothing there at all. So he just becomes very confused, and he starts to climb this lotus stem, and this lotus stem is miles and miles long. As he starts to climb it up, he hears two sound vibrations. He hears the word tappa, tappa, and as we know, the word tapa, which is Sanskrit, is translated into the word penance. So that is none other than Lord Vishnu, that the Garbhodaksha Vishnu who's lying there. He's telling Brahma to do tapasya, to do some tapasya. So, those of you who are interested in Sanskrit, some people say, oh, Sanskrit started 5,000 years ago. The letters of Sanskrit were spoken by the Lord himself right at the beginning of creation. So it's been there since then. So Brahma reaches the top of the lotus, and how is Brahma supposed to do tapasya? Where's the knowledge of the tapasya going to begin? So it describes it, he starts praying, and then at that time, Lord Krishna, through playing his flute, he reveals the knowledge of the Vedas into the heart of Brahma, and he gives him the information or the mantras that are required to do penance. And it's described that Brahma does penance for many, many, many years. Celestial years is about 1,000 years, but in terms of human years, it's a long time. So he does this tapasya, and the knowledge is given by Lord Krishna into the heart of Brahma. So we always like to get evidence from the scripture where this is written. So this is the first verse of the Bhagavatam. This is a really beautiful verse. And here he has written here, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kaviye. It is he, so the Lord, it is the Lord who first imparted the Vedic knowledge onto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. So if anybody asks you the source, what is the source of our scriptures? How long ago were they written down, or how long were they in existence? So historically, we always hear, oh, Sanatan Dharma or Hinduism is like 5,000 years old. But it's actually longer than that. The scriptures were written down around 5,000 years ago, but the knowledge always existed from before then. So the knowledge was always passed down through word of mouth to the disciples, and the disciples had perfect memory. They would remember it, and then they would pass it down to their disciples. So this is known as the system of Parampara, or the disciplic succession, which Srila Prabhupada always spoke a lot about. So, how old is Vedic knowledge? It's existent eternally in the spiritual world, but in terms of the material world, it was given immediately at the beginning of creation. So, it has been around for trillions of years, as we'll find out a bit later on. Okay, so here's the one. Lord Krishna is the one who imparted the Vedic knowledge. So, who's saying this? Vyasadeva is saying this. When Vyasadeva is writing down the Bhagavatam, he is narrating this and he's saying it is he. So he's referring to Lord Krishna here. Okay, so Brahma's here, and he's been given this knowledge by Krishna of how to create, all the different mantras. He's been given all the different Vedas and the scriptures orally, like through the ear and into his heart. And now at this point, because he's done very well, he's got to the end of his penance, he can actually see what's going on around him. So he can see this huge Garbhodakshaya Vishnu lying below him, and there's a conversation, a beautiful conversation that takes place between them, and you can read about that in Canto 3. So here's Brahma. He's got all the knowledge that he needs now to be able to do creation, and that's the stage we're at over here. Okay, so it's described that in order to do the creation, so this lotus flower and lotus stem here, obviously it's in a picture, so it looks very small, is actually many millions of miles long, and Brahma's lotus is as big as almost the entire universe. So it's described that this lotus splits into three, so the higher, the middle, and the lower. So you got the higher planets, the middle planets, and the lower planets. So that's how Brahma first creates, and then each region splits further, and then we get the planetary systems. So we have the upper region, which is Satyalok, Tapalok, Janalok, Mahalok. And then we've got, I'll just show you a different diagram. So you can see, and all of these rest on the lotus stem of Lord Vishnu, the entire planetary systems. So let's have a look. So we've got the 6 upper planetary systems. They're planetary systems, so it's not just one planet. There's many planets that exist in that one system. And I don't know many of you if you have been to Mayapur or you've heard about the Temple of Vedic Planetarium. So they are building the first Vedic planetarium, meaning how the planet, the systems are there according to the Vedas or according to our scriptures, and it's already attracted so many different people to come along, different scientists, cosmologists, that they want to know, what is written down in the scripture. And there's a massive dome and a big model of the planetary systems as it's described in the Vedas that will come into play. So when that opens, fingers crossed, hopefully in a few years we can all go and check it out. It's huge. I mean, I've seen the building being built. It's one of the biggest temples in the world, I would say. So you've got the upper planetary systems, you've got Earth, which is in the middle, and then you've got your 7 lower planetary systems. So in total, there are 14 planetary systems, and the lowest planet, out of the lowest planet amongst those planetary systems, there's 28 hellish planets. So that's the last planetary system. Okay, so I thought I had a slide for this, but maybe it's on a different thing. So let me just go a little bit. So you've got Satyalok, Tapalok, Janalok, Mahalok, and then you've got all these other different planetary systems, and you've got our planets that are there, and then you've got Earth, which is a tiny dot over here, and then you've got your lower planetary systems that go into that. Okay, but that will be covered, at a later stage. All right, so now let's look into this. So all these planetary systems are there, and now it becomes Brahma's responsibility to create people. So Krishna says, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu says that, all these planetary systems are there. Please, can you populate them? So that's why Brahma is known as the Supreme Father. He's known as Pitamaha. He's the Supreme Father in the sense of in the material world. Is through him we've come into the material world. So Brahma starts to create, He creates all the saints and sages, many of them. And you can see the first thing he creates is the four Kumaras, these little boys here. So Brahma creates them and he says, okay, I've been given this big task to populate the entire universe, all these different planetary systems. I have to populate them. So please, can you help me? And the four Kumaras are, they say, no, we don't want to do that. We've come into this world. We don't want to become married and have children. We don't want to get caught up in that. We would like to focus on our spiritual lives. And we'd like to stay as little boys. We don't want to grow. We don't want to go past puberty because we don't want to have to be kind of disturbed by, hormones and bodily changes. So Brahma was very displeased by this. He didn't express his anger, but he said to the four Kumaras, so be it if that's what you want. But he did still feel angry, which he didn't express to them. But that anger came out as an expression out of his forehead and is described from there. Rudra came into the world. So Lord Shiva comes into the world. Now, Lord Shiva exists eternally in the spiritual world. This is how the Lord Shiva comes into the material world. So he comes through Lord Brahma's forehead. Okay, so now this is where we can understand the concept of the trimurti, or the kind of the three personalities who look after creation, maintenance, and destruction. Okay, so we have Brahma. You saw that was created by Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And generally when we're taught this in schools, especially here in England, and even in other countries as well, generally when we hear about creation, we always hear about it from this point forward. We don't necessarily hear the more in-depth stuff that happens before. So that's why Brahma is generally described to be the creator. But once we read the Bhagavatam and the other Puranas, we understand that yes, he is the creator, but he's a secondary creator. There's many things that happen before that. So we got Brahma, and then we got Vishnu. So Garbhodakshaya Vishnu has expanded into, this Shirodakshaya Vishnu, or Paramatma as Super Soul. So he's our local Vishnu that's here in our material world. That if ever there's any issue, he's the one who comes and sorts everything out. And then that's how we've just heard how Lord Shiva comes into the material world. He comes through Brahma's forehead. Okay, so Lord Shiva is a very complex tattva. There's much explanation on Lord Shiva on in himself. He's a wonderful personality and with great power, but that's not the focus of this workshop today. But to just, there may be maybe you have some family and friends who are Shivites, or even maybe you may be originally come from that particular background. So this is how, just to clarify, this is how Lord Shiva comes into the world. He's there eternally in the spiritual world. So this is the Trimurti, okay, and they exist like this only in the material world. So these three personalities, they fulfill their roles to maintain, right? So we've got Lord Vishnu, the maintainer, the creator is Brahma, and we've got Lord Shiva, who is the destroyer. Okay, and he does more than destruction, but that's a whole different topic. So this is the material world. So the material world has now officially been created. So we've got the material world here. Okay, and this material world is created, is destroyed, is created, is destroyed time and time again. And there's a famous astrophysicist, Carl Sagan, and he says actually that within Sanatan philosophy is the only philosophy that corroborates his understanding of the universe, that there's multiple universes, and that they come multiple times, they're destroyed, and it's all created again and again in a kind of cyclical kind of way. Okay, so that's the material world. So now we can look at it a bit more detailed here. So, I mentioned about the 7 higher planets. So the 6 higher planets. So you got the 6 higher planets here. You've got Earth here, that's in the middle. And then you have the lower planets here. And then right at the bottom, you've got the hellish planets. So this is, and this is one universe. Okay, so you can see many other universes in the background here. And then this universe has like elements that coat it, that go around it. So you have layers of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. But we'll get into that more next week. That's just to kind of plant some seeds there. So here you've got Lord Shiva, who's here as the destroyer. You've got our local Vishnu that's here, that is Shirodakshaya Vishnu or Kirodakshaya Vishnu, Paramatma, who's here. And then you've got Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, who's at the bottom. So this is not this picture that's been illustrated is not being illustrated in this particular illustration is there just to so you can understand the planetary system. But we understand that this entire universe, half of it is actually filled with water, and Garbhodakshaya Vishnu lies just above that. So this should technically be half, but it's just illustrated like this so we can the focus is here the planetary systems. Okay, so it's described that higher planets are very subtle. So there are bodies that are there, but they don't have a gross body like we do. Like our body is made up of the 5 elements. So you've got earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So we've got a gross body, but as you get higher and higher from Earth, things become more and more subtle. So Brahma's body is not like ours. His body is made entirely of intelligence, which is, a completely subtle element, and it's not made of, like a body like ours. So this is why when we hear about people visiting other planets, why they can't see anything because it's more of a subtle region. The personalities that live there, the whole area is more of a subtle thing.
We've got one
Are all the
question.
Yep,
Oh,
are all
sorry.
is that the one Martin's
Yeah,
question? Yep.
that's right. Yeah.
So are all the material universes structured in the same way? So that is what has been explained, that all the different universes, they have the same structure of the different planets, the planetary systems. However, it's described that our universe is the most simple and the least complex. So other universes are larger, they have more capacity, they have the same planetary systems, but those planets in themselves, they have more dimensions, like it's multi-dimensional rather than the kind of dimensions that we have here on our Earth. So it's described that our universe is actually the newest, the youngest, and it's the smallest as well. So this system of Brahma being there and Garbhodakshaya Vishnu being there is there in the other universes as well. But their Brahmas, they have more heads. So our Brahma only has 4 heads, but it's described the Brahmas in all the other universes, they have many, many heads. 8 heads, 1,000 heads. And we hear about this in Canto 10, when Lord Krishna summons all of the Brahmas from all the different universes. And our Brahma gets bewildered. He's like, "What? I thought I was the only Brahma. Why are there all these different Brahmas there?" And those Brahmas are described, some of them have 1,000,000 heads, because they need that in order to run the universe. They need to have that level of, you know, those many heads to be able to take care of things. So yeah, our universe is the simplest, but we have the same planetary kind of structure that is there. That's a brilliant question. Are there any other questions on this?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
This Burloka is just one single Earth planet, or all the planets, like in so many solar systems we have, right?
Yeah, it's included. So there's Earth and there's all of our solar system and everything that comes under our loka is, as it's written over here, Burloka. So the Earth planet includes, the 9 planet, the 9 planets that we hear about at school, and plus all the different galaxies and stuff like that. That's all contained. So what we hear about from NASA and things like that about what's in space is actually just only here is just our sky, the Earth sky. It doesn't go as far as Bhuvarloka, which is a whole different realm, which we cannot see with the material eyes because it's subtle. So that's another
Thank you,
point.
Mataji. Hare Krishna. One more question can I ask?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
When yeah, Svargaloka, the realm of 33 million demigods and demons, and then Bhuvarloka, Rakshasas and ghosts. It's confusing. Svargaloka is only for demigods, right? Or the demons also there, and then Rakshasas. What is the difference between Rakshasas and demons then? Because
Okay.
Bhuvarloka is there for Rakshasas.
Okay. So Bhuvarloka is described to be a place of the Rakshasas and the Bhuts. So here on Earth we have these personalities that exist as well, but those who are not so powerful. Whereas Bhuvarloka has so Rakshasa are like described to be kind of like flesh-eating, very powerful, cruel personalities, but they have a lot of power, so they're there in a subtle form in their Bhuvarloka. Swargaloka, when it's talking about demons, so when we'll learn about, I don't know if we'll go into that much detail actually, but Brahma, he creates, he has all of his children that he creates. One of his children is Kashyap, And Kashyap has many wives. One of his wives gives birth to demigods. So demigods are personalities who are jivas, but they are submissive to the Lord and they worship the Lord. And then he has another, he has another wife, and she gives birth to the demons. So their nature is like a little bit more demoniac. But they're born of Kashyap Muni, who actually lives within the Swargaloka. So they're the children of a kind of of a female who's who's a demigod, but that is their duty to populate the universe with these different many people. So that's why we have demons who are there in Swargalok also. So they're the children of like Danava. Dana has the children called Danava. He's got a wife called Daitya. All of the children are Daityas. So they're a race of people. Yeah, whereas Rakshasas are more like I could be I could develop Rakshas mentality, meaning if I go more towards my lower nature. So Rakshasas are not necessarily a kind of class of people, they're more just like our nature. Whereas the demons, they're just the sons of a particular demigoddess who's had them. So I hope that makes sense. So in Swargaloka we have demons and demigods that live there.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, they're a race of people. Like, for example, we hear about Prahlad, right? Prahlad Maharaj is a pure devotee of Krishna. He is a demon. He's born in a demon family. So it's a race of people rather than it be their kind of nature. So, and even like Bali Maharaj, he's also a demon, but he's, that's the race he's part of, but his consciousness is that he's of a devotee. Like, for example, I'm in an Indian family, so the race that I'm part of is an Indian family, but my consciousness could be that of a Rakshas or it could be that of a Devata in that way. So I hope that helps with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Relate to in the beginning you said about causal ocean and Garbhodaka ocean, right? So in causal ocean, Vishnu just lies down without any support, but in Garbhodaka ocean, he lies on the serpent.
Mhm.
Is there any significance on that?
Yeah, so it's described that as people, we like to be very useful. We like to have some service to do. We feel like our nature is to do something for others, either as a parent or a colleague, or we like to serve. So there's so many different personalities that like to serve the Lord. And so it's described that Ananta Shesh, he loves to serve the Lord. So he comes in this form as a serpent so that the Lord can use him to lie on. So that's the purpose of why he lies on Ananta Shesh. It's a seva he likes to do.
Okay, but
Yeah.
it's a bit difficult to understand, like why exactly in serpent form, why not any other form,
Yeah, so
and the
there's
same
many.
service, why can't he give in as when he is in the causal ocean? Only why in the Garbhodaka ocean?
Yeah, I mean, so there's nothing written that he doesn't necessarily do that. Maybe sometimes Mahavishnu does lie down on a serpent, but in this particular creation description that's given in our Bhagavatam, they're talking about the time when Mahavishnu didn't have a serpent underneath him. So we have to remember that there's different variations because sometimes Anantashesh serves in that capacity, sometimes he doesn't. So it's not that Lord Vishnu needs that support. It's just in terms of when he can take that role on. Because Shesha also falls into a category of, so there's two different types of Sheshas. You've got Balaram, who comes to serve the Lord, but there's also Shesha, the personality who's a Jiva like us, who likes to serve the Lord. So sometimes he comes and he plays that role, sometimes he doesn't. Why a serpent? So that's a good question. I think I've asked that question as well in the past, because that is the kind of thing that in that circumstance what works best. Serpent, what do serpents like to do? They like to be in the water. They're also very soft and squishy, so making a nice comfortable bed for the Lord. And it's also described that Ananta has got so many hoods, and those hoods play a certain role in the material world. So we can see here, even here right at the bottom, one of the hoods, this is another type of Ananta Shesh. Over here he's holding one universe on his head. So a serpent form is used because there's many universes, and it's described the universe is like a mustard seed that sits on Ananta's head. It's just so small on Ananta's head. So that's why he's got multiple heads, because that's the species that works best for doing that particular role. So it's all about variegatedness, with the beauty of like Krishna consciousness, we're always taught about the importance of variety and all these different species that exist, and everybody can play a role in different ways, in different forms. So I hope that's okay.
Yeah, that
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed the discussions. So who would like to start? Which group would like to start and speak about what they discussed, and any questions that might have come up that they'd like to cover, or any part of the topics that you'd like to go a little bit deeper in next week. So I'll make sure that I cover it next week. So no volunteers. Okay, can I ask Lisa Mataji and General Mataji to go first?
Okay, I can go first. So this was actually a really useful exercise, because normally when I do like classes, I'm like writing loads of notes, and okay, yeah, you read through the notes again, which is fine, but actually it's a good way to kind of test your understanding when you're trying to explaining it to someone else. So yeah, this was a good exercise. What I was saying was, okay, so there's 3 types of Vishnus who have different roles, and the sort of, I guess the level ones is, so the first one is Karn. Okay, so my Sanskrit pronunciation is awful.
Don't worry about it.
Karnadakshya Vishnu. So this is the Vishnu, that beautiful image of where he sort of creates this ocean through his sort of perspiration, and when he's in this like deep sleep, and when he exhales, he's created these like bubbles which are unlimited universes, one of which is the ocean is part of like the material world, and every time he exhales, he's sort of expanding himself and goes into each universe. The second one is Garbhodakshya Vishnu. So this is the image where Vishnu is lying down on the serpent, and a lotus stem sort of comes from his navel, and Lord Brahma is created, Lord Brahma who's sitting on the lotus. And then the third Vishnu is, okay, I don't know how to pronounce this one. Kshirodakshya, is that right? Vishnu. So this is whenever there's trouble on earth, the demigods appear and approach this particular Vishnu to either appear or sort of get help and guidance. And we were just sort of saying that at this point, though, nothing is officially sort of created. It's almost like setting the scene. And then that's when, so this is like the primary creation, would you say? And then the secondary creation is that story you gave of Lord Brahma when he's sitting on the lotus stem, doesn't really know where he is, he's in the dark, doesn't really know what's going on. Here's a particular Sanskrit word which means tapasya, and then is given sort of knowledge by Krishna in terms of what he's instructed to do and why he's being created and what he needs to do in the material world. I don't know if that was a good explanation.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you. Lisa, would you like to add anything? Lisa Mataji?
Janai Mataji's, I did say to Janai Mataji, I wasn't present for a lot of the first part, so I missed so much of it. But Janai Mataji's explanation was so great, so thank you very much. I can't add anything.
Okay, wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you, both of you. Thank you both for that. So yeah, the secondary creation starts from the point of when Brahma starts to create other people, when he starts to create all the planetary systems, and when Lord Shiva comes out of his forehead as well. So that's wonderful. Thank you. So Martin Prabhu and Ravindra Prabhu, if you'd like to share with us.
Vendra Prabhu and I sort of initially agreed that we're much clearer now on the 3 Vishnus, and I was saying that it's very useful for me to understand where the trimurti is in the process, and why we tend not to hear about what happened before. So we don't tend to hear, therefore, about Krishna's primary existence. And then and Ravindra Prabhu, jump in at any point. We were talking really more broadly about cosmology and how non-Vedic cosmology is is relatively limited. You know, and linear. You know, there's the Big Bang, and then everything followed it, and we don't really want to talk about why there was a bang, why there was a thing that went bang, how the thing that went bang got there, and it's kind of consistent with the Sanatana Dharma that it should be able to explain eternity. But that's a very difficult concept. And Ravindra Prabhu, you were saying as well, weren't you? Perhaps you could say this better than me. How it's unfortunate that in conventional education today that this isn't approached. Thinking on this scale isn't approached.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I've seen a few YouTube videos on this where people have kind of looked into it and they're like, whoa, why were we not taught this at school? It would have just opened our minds up to something completely different to what we are taught. So I don't know. There could be a lot of things to do with that. I mean, we are working alongside schools and things like that to try and make more information available. But I think it comes under RS, religious studies, where only a very little bit of time is given to it in schools. But I think it should be covered in science as well, you know. But that's something we can petition for. We are the change that we want to see, so maybe we can work on something like that. Thank you. Did you want to add anything more, Martin Prabhu? No,
Thank you, Mataji.
Ravinder Prabhu, did you want to add anything?
Yes, Mataji. I was. We were also talking about the ascending and descending way of understanding, gaining knowledge, right? So these scientists and putting a lot of effort and finally concluding whatever is already stated in the Vedic scriptures. For example, simple example we can take like the terminology like Bhugola, Brahmanda, all this. They already know that it's in spherical shape. The planet is in spherical shape, and the entire universe is in as like a egg shape, always. And scientists spending a lot of years and a lot of effort, then they're concluding the same. So initially, it may sound difficult for us to accept the authoritative, like the descending way of gaining knowledge, but the conclusions are clear.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much. Just to say on that as well, like the recently the God particle. I don't know if you have read into that. So like we've always said, oh, you know, Lord Vishnu is, you know, he's in every single atom. And then if you look into like the God particle, it fits into that kind of thing where scientists would always say like there's all these protons, electrons, neutrons, they're going around something. There's some sort of energy that is there in between that these things are going round and round on, but they don't know what, you know, quite what that is. And then, you know, recent studies have, you know, spoken about the God particle. So it's interesting. So it's not like we're at loggerheads with science. It's like it's hand in hand, but I just feel that science is a little bit behind. They're still catching up. And I think the Temple of Veda Planetarium will really help with that. It's like, well, here's the knowledge, and why don't you go away and do scientific experiments based on the knowledge that's already given, so that you can prove that it exists for your own self's sake, if that's what science is about, to kind of prove it, rather than working towards theories and then finally kind of getting there. So we do agree a lot with science in that way. What we don't agree is with the things that they hide, that doesn't come out in the mainstream experiments that they do, that might contradict what their hypothesis was, and they don't want to really open it up to the world. So that's the issue that we might have with that. Wonderful, thank you. And Urvasi Mataji, as well as Pragna Mataji, would you like to share your discussion?
Mataji, who was with me, she will be, I think she will explain better than me.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So we discussed that the first we have Karnadakshay Vishnu first, and we found out he's on an ocean of his nice smelling sweat. And then from his pores come all the universes. And within the universes is Garbhadakshay Vishnu, who's on a Sheshnag, that's on the ocean within, and that ocean is also made of his sweat. And then we also have Shirodakshay Vishnu, who is lying on a milk ocean, and he's also on a Sheshnag as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
is there any? Oh, sorry. Were you finished?
No, I have a question, but I
Oh,
forgot the question. I'll ask you in a minute.
Okay, yeah, sure. Whenever you remember, you can just raise your hand and we'll take the question there. So are we okay to move on? Okay, so it's nice that you spoke a little bit about the Big Bang Theory. We'll be talking about that next week and how that, how can we kind of, what the Big Bang Theory is saying, what the Vedas say. Are they in line with each other? Is there anything we can corroborate, or are they separate? So we will look at that next week. And now let's just carry on from where we left off. So we spoke about the one universe. We had, this is the 14 planetary systems, and this is the one universe. And the Sanskrit word for it is Brahma. So it means the ultimate under, the egg of the universe. So the universe is described to be like an egg type shape. It's like a golden egg, and we'll hear more about that next week. So questions we've already covered. So now let's go back to Brahma. So we'll look at a different, before we go into level 3. So I was thinking of going into level 3 explanation of creation, but I think there's a lot already to digest today. So we'll try and digest it over the week, and then we'll cover level 3 and the further levels next week as we go into more detail. It'll be the same thing, but it'll be a little bit more detail. Okay, so Brahma is at a stage, he's on the lotus flower. He split it into 3, and you got your planetary systems, and then he creates the stages. So it's described his order from the Lord is to populate the universe, not just the Earth, the universe. So according to Vedic understanding, there is life on all the different planetary systems that are there. And if we think about this in a logic way, if we move away from Vedic science at the moment, think about it in a logic way, why would an entire cosmos be created for there only to be population on one Earth? We have got to have a huge false ego or be very egocentric to think we're the only people that live here because, we know about the life on Earth, therefore we're the only people, and the rest is just all decoration. So that's my view or my understanding. And then that's why it's very nice when we cover the Vedic science and we hear in detail about life on the other planets, what people look like, what the atmosphere is like, what the livelihood is like, what the different, what it looks like, what does it have, like plants and trees and things like that. And all of that is described into a lot of detail in Canto 5. So that's a very, very adventurous canto that you can read, and each region is described. And it also talks about the qualifications that are required in order to go to that planet as well. So we hear about in Canto 8, we hear about how Indra has the power. Indra is the king of heaven, of Swarga. He has the power to push down anyone away from his planet that doesn't deserve to go there. So when we look at modern day science, when they're visiting these other planets, we can question, did they go to that planet? And if they did go there, maybe they were taken off to a desert region. For example, we know that the moon is, from descriptions in the Vedas, is luscious. It's actually the cause of life even on Earth. That the moon is the Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, it provides all the nourishment to the vegetables that are here on Earth. And like, so much of, our oceans are influenced by the moon. How can the moon possibly be a desert? So say we had people coming from another planet and they landed on Earth and we didn't want them to know about our life on Earth. Naturally, if we took them over to the Sahara Desert, they would look at all of the, Earth is a desert, there's no life there, it's just sand, we can't find any sources of water. That's what they would see if they came down here on Earth. So we have to kind of open up our minds a little bit in this sort of way, that the information that we're being fed from modern day science is based on very limited amount of information, depending on their kind of resources they have available to them at that time. And that's why over time science is always updating itself. It's okay, we've got new information, but I think Vedic science is a wonderful place to start, and then we can say, okay, well, this is what's there. And if you don't have 100% faith in scripture, you can, over time, as science is catching up, you can corroborate it and see that a lot of these things have already been written and been discussed a long time ago. Urvashi is asking, Shirodaksha Vishnu is also within each atom. Is it correct to say he is also supersoul within each jiva? Yes. So he's in each and every living entity as well as each and every atom. Thank you, Urvashi. Okay, so Brahma's here. So Brahma has to do he has to populate the universe. So there's life on all of the different planetary systems, and the first thing he does, he creates sages. He creates the sages. He's created the 4 Kumaras, as we saw in the previous picture, the 4 little naked boys. And then Lord Shiva comes from there, and he creates many other sages. And Narad Muni, which we hear about a lot in our scriptures, the transcendental spaceman, he is also one of the sons of Brahma. He's one of the and these children that come from Brahma, they come from his different parts of his body. So, for example, his body is made up of intelligence. So, like from his shoulder, certain personalities come. From his head, certain personalities come. And Narad Muni comes when he's in deep deliberation on meditating on the Lord. Okay. So it's described. So once he creates these sages, from those sages, different personalities also come, like different demigods come. Okay, so we have, like for example, we have Surya over here, Surya Dev. And also in Vedic kind of descriptions, Sanatan descriptions, we understand that the sun isn't just a sun. So the sun is a planet, but there's also a personality who resides over that planet, who's the king of that planet and takes care of it. So we have sun, the actual physical sun, and we have the personality Surya, who actually rules over that sun and is in charge and makes all the decisions that need to be made. And then we've got Indra, who's like the rain god as well as the thunder god. So he creates all of the different demigods. We've got Agni here, and different personalities are created by Brahma. And these personalities, they live in the higher regions that are there because they are jivas like us. So this is where the confusion happens a lot in Sanatana Dharma. Many people think that we're a polytheistic religion and a polytheistic faith, and we have many gods because they are called as gods, but they're known as demigods. So they are partial gods, meaning that they are humans, but they are empowered with certain levels of energy so that they can govern over, have power and govern over certain regions. They are not godhood. They are not a god with a capital G, as in the supreme absolute Lord. They are personalities. And why do demigods need to be there? Why can't the Supreme Lord actually manage everything himself? Because as I've explained with Ananta Shesh, is that we like to be useful. We like to be engaged in service. We like to be, have some position or power or be doing something with ourselves, making ourselves useful. So these personalities have done great pious things in the past. So they've been given these roles and responsibilities around the universe to do a variety of things. So these demigods are created in this way. One person who helps a lot with populating the universe, the different planetary systems, is Kashyap. So this is Kashyap Dev, and he has 17 wives. And these personalities were created. These women were also created earlier as well. So Brahma does a lot of population, and there are some personalities that come from certain places. Some people come directly from the spiritual world themselves. So he marries these 7 demigoddesses, and they have they bring life on Earth and the different planetary systems in different ways. So one, creates the lizards, another person creates the fish, and it's described that even though they look human, they're capable of giving birth to different types of species. So obviously modern day science may have a lot to say about this, but this is what's written in our Vedic science. And it's described that, this is possible because they're not normal human beings like we are. When they give birth, they're impregnated, they can give birth in a day. They don't have to go through 9 months of pregnancy at all. And they can give birth to many personalities in one go. They don't suffer labor pains like we do. Some of them, in their sleep, they can create. So we've seen how Brahma is able to create all this progeny without the need of a wife. He can do it, totally himself from his different parts of his body. So it's slightly different to what we might hear in the world today. So these are all these women, and then they create all the different species on Earth, including the landscapes and the the foliage and all the different creatures that exist there. So it's populated in that way. And also there's the humans as well, these varieties of different humans. So my question to you, if I had to ask you that, how many different species of humans are there? What would you say? So you can either unmute and say, or you can say in the chat. How many different species of humans would we say that there are? Any idea? Any wild guesses is fine. You don't have to worry about it being wrong or right.
Something like 800 million.
800 million, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, 100 million, that's a good guess. Wonderful. Any other thoughts from anyone else?
Is this species or just humans?
Species, different species of humans.
I think 15 to 20 varieties of human species are there
Okay,
throughout the world.
thank you. Martin, did you have any guess? Anything like to guess? Any others like to think of any? All right, so yeah, I'm talking about different types of species. So it's described. So one way we could say, okay, so there's males and there's females, right? So that immediately we see that there's two, but there's many others as well. So it's described there are 400,000 different species of humans. So this is just an example of different types. So you've got your different races as well here on Earth, your different races, different skin color, different atmospheres in which they live. Okay, so that's also included. But it also includes all the different personalities that live on other planets as well, this humankind. It includes the demigods, it includes like the Apsaras and the Gandharvas and the Kinnaras and the Kimpurshas. So you hear about all these different personalities. And in the humankind, it includes like the demons. And so all of the different humanoid type looking personalities are included in the humankind. So in the purports, time and time again, in the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, it explains there's 8,400,000 different species. So he's not talking about the overall population, he's talking about different types of species. So for example, I might pick a grass. So that's one type of grass, but you can get different types of grasses that are there. So there are different species of grass. So these are all the different species of different things that different kind of livelihood living entities that are out there, which matches a little bit with science. Like science does say there's 8 something million whatever, but it's not quite the same figure as how it's specifically written time and time again. There's 8,400,000 species of life. But we also know that they haven't kind of explored everywhere. Like the Mariana Trench is a place where the water is so deep that they can't even go that far down to be able to explore what kind of species live underwater. There's so much that it hasn't yet been explored. So that's why the figure is still a bit open and increasing as time is going on, according to like modern day science. However, in the Vedas, it's very specific, 8,400,000. And there's 400,000 different types of species of humans, and we can read about that in all the different cantos. All right, so I didn't mention we'll go to level 3, but we will, we've done all of this already. We'll go into, we'll go into a bit more of looking into the universe. So in case there were any doubts, I think you guys had nailed this on the head, but I'll just go through it quickly again. So there's Karnadakshay Vishnu, Mahavishnu. He is in the Karana ocean or the causal ocean. Garbhodakshay Vishnu is the second Vishnu. He is in the Garbhodaka ocean. And then you got Kshirodakshay Vishnu, also known as Paramatma or the Super Soul or Antaryami. And he is in the milk ocean. And he's also inside every single living entity and the atom. So just a little bit on that. So it's described in the Bhagavad Gita that it's like there's 2 birds in a tree. There's one bird which is observing the other bird just eating away, chopping away. So it's described that we are spirit souls, and also within our heart region, we also have the super soul, or the Lord is within us, within our heart. And he's there watching us, eating the fruits, going through life. And if we turn to him and look to him for guidance, he always advises us. So some people might say intuition, or kind of like, something, a message that's being received from within. A lot of that is the Paramatma. He's the guiding principle of helping us go through life and understanding it a bit better. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that once we want to surrender to him more, he is the one who guides us from within of how to get more knowledge about him and how to become closer to him. And that's Paramatma, the Kshirodakshay Vishnu, that's within our heart. Okay, and just a little bit of information on that also. There are many different types of super souls. So everybody here on Earth, they have one type of super soul, and our particular super soul has a name. He's called Janardhan. Canto 2 talks about actually there's 24 different types of super souls. So Brahma's super soul is a different personality. And like that, for example, depending on which planet you live on, your super soul, your local Paramatma has a different name and a slightly different personality. But they kind of look the same in terms of, they all look like Lord Vishnu, but their hands are situated in different ways, and their hands are holding different things in different positions. So there's 24 varieties. there's just a little bit of information for you there on Canto 2. And also, I think it's nice to get these snippets of information because, and when you go away and you read with that little bit more detail, that where does it say this? So anyway, that's how I like to do. Okay, so we're talking about creation, and so Brahma creates all these different personalities. Now, another thing that's I think which Martin Prabhu mentioned, which was interesting, that you were mentioning how with modern day science, the timing is kind of linear way, but Vedic science is cyclical. Things work in cycles. So we'll have a look at that, and it's important in the topic of creation because we can understand why things happen how they do and why in the Vedas sometimes the stories are a bit varied, that we may, one scripture may say certain things happen in a certain way and something may say something different, and because time is cyclical, meaning that the universe is created, it's there for a while, it's destroyed, and then it's created again. So some of these leelas or pastimes may be talking at a particular different time scale of when this happened. So we can see in the world today that time is cyclical. For example, we've got morning, afternoon, evening, and then we've also got like the seasons. They come and go, and they're always coming around in cycles. So the yugas are very much similar to that. So it's described that we have 4 time periods. So we've got Satya Yuga, which is described to be the golden age. That is the longest period of time that is there in the circle. We've got Treta Yuga, which is the silver. Then you've got Dvapara Yuga, which is the Copper Age, and then we've got the Iron Age, which is Kali, which we're currently in right now, and it's described we are just over 5,000 years into this time period. We can look a little bit at how long each time period is, but it's described during each time period. There are different ways of propitiating the Lord, connecting with the Lord. So in the Golden Age, people used to do a lot of meditation. In the Silver Age, we did 5 yagyas. Then in the Dwapara Yuga, it was more deity worship and things. And today, the best way to connect with the Lord is actually chanting or doing Sankirtan of the Lord. And because each of these are transcendental, we will still see that even though it was introduced and it's not the way of worship, the primary form of worship now, it will still exist because it has existed there in the past. So it never ever actually gets destroyed. It's always there. The influence of it might be less, but it'll still always be there. Okay. So how long do each of these yugas last? So there's Kali Yuga. Now, some of these figures may go over your head, but I would say one good way to memorize these, because, as you progress more, you may want to teach, or you may want to give a class also, or you may want to explain it to somebody else, is that if you can just remember this one figure, this one number, 432 and 30, so 432,000, then you can remember everything else that I'm going to cover in terms of like the most complicated of figures that will be there. So if you can just remember this key number, and then you can remember everything else. So Dvapara Yuga is double the amount of time that is in Kali Yuga. So if we just add 432,000, that is how long that time period is. So Dvapara Yuga lasts for 864,000 years. And then if you add another 432,000, we have Treta Yuga, or the Silver Age, and it lasts for 1,296,000 years. And then Satyug, the Golden Age, it lasts for 1,728,000 years. So if we look at the time scales, the knowledge of Sanatana Dharma has been around for many millions, and as we'll see soon, trillions of years, this knowledge has been around. And this is why sometimes when the modern day world, when they ask for evidence, they're like, we want to see physical evidence of your existence or your civilization. It's very difficult because we know that time destroys things. Things get deteriorated and they don't exist anymore. Even things that were there like a few hundred years ago, are getting destroyed either through acid rain or through invasions, or, there's things that destroy it. So can you imagine, like, it's very hard to prove that with physical evidence that certain things existed when the time periods are so long ago, right? So humans used to live for different spans of life. So human life in Kali Yuga, the maximum, or here or there, is around 100 years, and we can see that's reducing as well drastically. During Dwapara Yuga, people lived for 1,000 years. Treta Yuga, 10,000 years, and in Satyug, 100,000 years. And if we look at our personalities, I think it's fair to say there are so many people in the world that fear death or have this kind of inherent nature of wanting to live forever or live longer or expand their life. And that's because we have that conditioning from previous ages where we did live a lot longer and we lived like very healthy, beautiful lives and for much longer. And also the soul is eternal. So we have this inherent nature to want to be in existence forever. And that's why Vedic philosophy is very powerful, because from that we can understand we are eternal. When death happens, it's the body that is destroyed and not us. And then we have this fear about the universe being destroyed as well. So that's why it's good to look at these time scales, because in this particular Kali Yuga, so these are cycles. So once Kali Yuga is finished, usually there's a destruction, and then the earth will reinstate itself, and then you have a new age starts, like Satyug starts again. But luckily, at the end of this particular Kali Yuga, it's described that there is going to be no destruction, that there will be an avatar that comes that regenerates the earth and just presses the reset button so that it goes back to the standard of life that was there during the Satyug, where everything was very green, everybody was very pure. There was no such thing as sinful reactions or like crime or things like that during these previous ages, because between each age, as the age deteriorates or the time scales deteriorate, so do the qualities of people that live on the earth. They're more susceptible to sinful activity or living a life which is not necessarily so pure or so honest. Okay, so I think we've been through this all before, what kind of thing has happened, what we do during that particular time. And we can go into the avatars, but that's outside of this course, but we'll just stick to the previous yoga. Krishna was the main avatar that was worshipped. And in this particular time, Lord Chaitanya comes to give us the congregational chanting of the Lord. Okay, now, so what's all the relevance of all of this time scale stuff? So the total duration of one cycle, so like if we calculate all of this, if we add this all together, it comes up to 4,320,000 years. So that's how long one cycle is of all four. So you got your golden, silver, copper, and iron age. If you add them all together, that duration of that one cycle is 4,320,000. So this is why I said this figure is very good to remember, because you just need to add zeros or take away zeros. Now, Brahma's one day, in Brahma's one day, we have 1,000 of these cycles. So let's just go back a bit. So we're in Kali Yuga. These were previous ages. At the end of Kali Yuga, Satyug starts again, then Treta, Dwapara, Kali, and then the next. It just goes round and round like that, like the seasons. That's the best way I can describe it. Is that you have your autumn, winter, spring, summer, and then it's autumn again, winter again. And what comes after summer? It's autumn. So you go round it and round. So this goes round and round in circles. So these cycles. So this goes around 1,000 times, just in one day of Brahma. So that amount of time is 4,320,000,000 years long. I hope I said that correctly. And if we calculate time, so time in general, according to Vedic understanding, which is also covered in the Bhagavad Gita, is that when we look at time, we always look at it in relation to Brahma's life. So Brahma is the first human being that is there, and everything in terms of creation and what goes on in the world happens in relevance to Brahma's existence. Okay, so because obviously he's the first human being, and at that point creation is full underway. So one day of Brahma is that long. And he's got 30 days in each of his months. There's 12 months in a year that he's got, and he lives for 100 years. So this is celestial. This is all celestial time. Okay. So if we calculate that, if we use this number and we calculate that, it works out to 311 trillion years. That's how long Brahma lives for. Okay, so these figures that we've added up here, this is his daytime only. It doesn't include his night. And nighttime, when Brahma is asleep, there's destruction. There's nothing in existence. And he wakes up in the morning and he has to recreate everything again. The planetary systems, the personalities, and populate everything again. So, you know, that's also another part of creation, which we can get into next week if you want me to go into more detail of that. And it's described why does that destruction take place? Because you've seen the state of the earth, right? After a certain period of time, we do need to have everything reset. So destruction isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes destruction is required in order to bring about new life. And the example of a forest fire is not great, it's very destructive, but then it gives way for the seeds that are buried deep underneath to come to the surface to fructify for new life and new species to come on earth. So things only happen normally during Brahma's day. During his nighttime, there's nothing. He's just asleep and nothing exists. So we have to double it if we're working out his whole life. So Brahma's entire life and existence is about 311 trillion years long. Now, why are we talking about this? Because it's described that between Lord Vishnu, right at the beginning, remember Garnadakshay Vishnu, when he breathes out and everything is created, when he breathes in, 311 trillion years have passed by. So he takes a breath, he exhales, and then his inhalation happens 311 trillion years later on. Okay, and he doesn't have to take another breath if he doesn't want to, because remember, he's a supreme lord. He's not conditioned that we have to take a breath, otherwise we would die. So he doesn't have to take a breath again. So when he feels like creating again, he will take another breath. Otherwise, he doesn't bother. So he's not defined by the laws of nature of needing to take a breath every 311 trillion years long. So I just brought that in so that we can just take it all into a whole circle, because we spoke about Lord Vishnu breathing out, and then, you know, when him breathing in, that is when everything is wound up in the same way how everything came out of Lord Vishnu and came out and we had Brahma and he created everything. It works in a backward way when destruction happens. So there's floods or fire, and then when people die, they're sucked back into Lord Brahma's lotus flower. Then Brahma is sucked back into Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and then Garbhodakshay Vishnu goes back into Garnadakshay Vishnu's body, and Lord Vishnu, Garnadakshay breathes in, and all the universes go back into his pores. Okay, so I thought I'd finish there. So I tried not to go into too much detail today. Today was more of an introductory, just a general idea. And then next week we'll go into a lot more detail of what we've covered, if you want to. Or we could start off by, you know, having a question and answer session next week, you know, when you've had time to digest what we've covered so far. But at this stage, I know we're out of time, but I'll still take any questions if there are any questions that anybody would like to ask.
I think Lisa Mataji had her hand up. So Lisa Mataji.
Okay, sure. So, apologies if you did cover it earlier. I think in the slide that the previous group were described as police avatars, but I thought the avatars were when Krishna descended into the material world. So why is the term avatars used then?
Okay. So in the Bhagavatam, we understand that there are many different types of avatars that come. So an avatar means whenever the Lord descends into the world. So in order for creation, the Lord Krishna expands himself as Garnadakshay Vishnu to then begin creation. So there's different categories. So we've covered these. What we covered today is our Purusha avatars. They're all related to creation. Then you have the avatars that come to do Leela, just pastimes to enamor everyone and things like that. Then there's others that come at a particular time to introduce a certain knowledge that's been lost over time. For example, like Kapila might come and things like that. Then there are certain personalities who are just come like during this creation process. Like we spoke about Brahma's day. A different personality will come during Brahma's day to kind of like Matsya might come when the world is flooded in order to save certain people. So he'll come as Matsya. So the Lord comes many times. The Krishna's avatars come as well for a certain purpose, but there's 6 different categories. So there's Purusha, then there's the Lord Shiva, Brahma, and the Paramatma Vishnu. They're known as Guna avatars. They come to run certain things in creation. So yeah, as you read more and explore the Bhagavatam more, it explains that there's many different types of avatars. In fact, it's described there's as many avatars as there are waves in the ocean. So there's an unlimited time. In this cycle of time, the Lord will come time and time again for a different purpose, to set something straight, to introduce something. So it'll be there. They'll come again and again. He'll come again and again for a different purpose. Is that
Thank you,
okay?
Mataji. Yeah, thank you,
So the
Mataji.
Purusha avatars is just related to creation in order to do the creative activities.
Thank you.
Wonderful question. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have any further questions if you want to ask? Okay. Can I just ask you a question, please,
Yeah,
if that's
sure.
okay?
Yeah.
You mentioned about the dark matter, the dark cloud. Does that ever disappear at all?
It's always there in the spiritual world. There's always a time when there is the universe is being created or destroyed. So it's always there. So if you look at the Bhagavad Gita, there's 5 main topics that are there in the Bhagavad Gita. We've got the jiva, the soul. We've got God. We've got time. We've got karma, and we've got prakriti, which means the material world. And out of those 5 topics, only one is temporary, and that's karma. But all the other 4 are eternal, because it means prakriti, the universes are created time and time again. So it's eternal. So it's a time that there is always a time when the universe is going to be around or going to be created or about to be created. So the dark cloud, according to my understanding, if I've understood correctly, it's always there.
Okay, thank you very much. That sort of confirms that we still want to be separate from the Lord. In essence,
There's always a person, because there's unlimited living entities. So there's always somebody somewhere in some state or form that wants to enjoy separately from the Lord. So it may not be us. We'll be like, oh yeah, been there, done it all, wearing the t-shirt. I'm going back to the spiritual world. I'm not coming back here again. But there are those who will always want to, there are always someone at some point that wants to be separate.
Okay, thank you very much, Mataji.